Hi everyone, I am Jemiah Evans Smanoff, and I am going to be uh, discussing some of the things that we talked about or read about in chapters 1 through 4. I'm going to be using the questions that Huerta gave us that he asked. I'm going to go off of those. The first question that was there was, what are um, microaggressions? And from my understanding, they're basically kind of like um, subtle derogatory conducts from someone, or subtle derogatory um, words that someone would say that is used against or towards a certain group of people, um, or a type of specific type of person that are um, of a different identity of oneself, or so. And so that's what from my understanding of what microaggression is. And then it asks, have you witnessed microaggression? I have I witnessed micro. I would say yes. Have witnessed microaggression um, from a few people when it comes to speaking. I've had people tell me, uh, mostly of the white race, but I've had black people as well say this to me. But I've had people say, "You speak so well, you speak so good," and my first thought is, uh, I say thank you, but my first thought is opposed to who, opposed to what? Like, I speak good. Opposed to what? What do you mean by I speak good? I speak well. Am I not supposed to speak well? I've had that said to me many times, basically saying I sh- the way I speak or how clear I speak shouldn't be because I guess I'm black, or I don't know if is it my age, my gender, like what is the reason for you to think that I wouldn't be able to speak well? So that I would say would be one of my experiences of microaggression. Yeah. Another, I'm not sure if this would be an example of microaggression, but I think I have been, um, I I have uh, portrayed microaggression towards someone. I've had a time where I was not being sensitive to the way someone wanted to be presented as of their pronouns, and I mistakenly, um, instead of using the right pronouns for that person, I overly used the wrong pronouns, saying she or her instead of using the pronouns that they wanted to go by, and I didn't intentionally mean to always keep saying she or her, but I feel like I'm not sure, would that be an example of microaggression? I'll leave that up to you guys, but that was me being insensitive to trying to learn and specifically using their pronouns instead of using the wrong ones, such as she and her, which they did not go by. And that was a mistake on my part, and I guess I want to say is an example of it, but if not, you guys can correct me and help me out. That also can relate, I would say, to privilege in a way. I would say because I don't ever think about. I've never thought about my my gender, how I want to be announced, or how my sexuality could be a privilege. I never thought of that as being a privilege, so that was really insightful during the text of understanding that my sexuality is a dominance. Being a heterosexual female or male, doesn't matter the gender, but being heterosexual, how that is a norm, and we don't ever think about it being something where we have to classify ourselves. We don't bring up, oh, I'm a heterosexual girl, like it said in the book. Like, we don't ever think about those. We don't, when we're introducing or describing ourselves, we don't say, um, that we're heterosexual, as opposed to someone who may be gay or lesbian or bisexual. They sometimes, when they introduce themselves or describe themselves, they use those descriptives. Oh, I'm gay, or and we don't, as heterosexual people, don't say, oh, I'm heterosexual as a descriptive. And so that was really interesting to me reading that. And that's something that I feel like opened another doorway of me being like socially aware of where I stand on just being having some kind of privilege or some kind of dominance or norm, what I think is a norm or what is a norm in society. The next question was, well, I kind of already got into it, was about oppression. And or was it? What was the question? Oh, why the author talked about multiple identities. I feel that the author talked about multiple identities because our identities basically shapes our experience with people. One thing that I just talked about was the norm is usually the dominant. So, um, let's say the dominant, uh, whatever's dominance, they usually um, decide the structure of society. And so talking about multiple identities kind of help individuals figure out where they stand on being um, a dominant character or a subordinate character, or having a dominant identity or subordinate identity. And I feel like that was a really good way, or that was the reason for them to talk about multiple identities. Um, when we acknowledge our identities, we are opening a gateway to understanding other identities, and such those who have a subordinate identity to our dominant identity. Or, yeah. So I think that's kind of why they talked about multiple identities. Um, Kind of the same reason how I just realized about heterosexuality being a norm, being I guess um, a dominant identity, which I never would have thought about. When I characterize myself, I always see it as me being more of in the group of um, the subordinating group. One example that they used in the book, I think it was chapter 1, page 9, it was when they talked about identity, they talked about oppression. So that can lead me to this question, I guess. So what is the connection between privilege and oppression? So, like I just said, I kind of understood my background of where I can be privileged. And then going into oppression, that my other identity, I feel like that's where sometimes I feel, because I'm a black female, that that's a common, um, what I say, what's the word? A common way of feeling oppressed through just those identities. Why? An example they gave was battered women. It was page 9. It was about battered women, how they um, make themselves, they kind of avoid um, the aggression of their spouse or whoever they're with, their partner. So they got used to how they were, their partner being a dominance and their aggression. And so they figured out how they can avoid those situations. And so it they described it being based on survival. And so I feel like when it comes to oppression as a black female, just as a black person in general, and that gave a good example because it kind of made me understand why, like my parents specifically, talked to me about police brutality and about what we're supposed to do if we get pulled over. So, like, what we generally do when we get pulled over, they tell us, okay, keep your hand on the wheel, don't, reach for anything, just wait until they ask you the questions, yes or no, sir, abide by everything that they say, even if the officer is wrong, still agree, which puts us in an oppressive um, position because we know that we're not wrong and we didn't do anything wrong, whether it's speeding. Usually people can go and argue against, maybe a speeding ticket or a fine. They can go to court for it. And me growing up as a Black person, I was told, okay, don't argue, just take what they give you, even if they're wrong, just take it. And so that's an example of being in an oppressed situation and a privileged situation, and how I would say the connection, um, with that connection, So when they use that example of battered women being taught, you know, or not being taught, but teaching themselves to avoid, you know, that aggression so that you can live, so you don't have to witness the outcome. Same with, Black people with police officers. For so long, we've been trying to avoid, you know, um, what could happen to us, being beaten, being abused, even though we haven't done anything wrong. And now, us having a voice and standing up, and it's leading to those things. And it's been happening. It's leading to police brutality because, of those type of situations. And um, those are the people who are standing up instead of keeping themselves in the oppressed and the subordinating, um, character in those type of situations. Um, the last question they asked is, what is privilege? Do you have privilege? Um, Privilege is, let's say, one group. What did it say in the book? Basically, I'm trying to use the book definition they were saying. Um, when one group has something of value, but that is denied to another group, whether it's gender, race, religion, culture, whatever it is, um, that group is denied of that. That is what privilege is. Being aware of what you have, I guess, and not even being aware, but knowing what you have, and those things being denied to another group of people because of those qualities, or because of those things that make who they are. Um, so yeah, that is what I would say privilege is. And I gave an example of, do I think I have privilege? And I do have a privilege, and that's when I gave the example of my heterosexuality, um, being able to openly announce that I'm married, and with my husband of whoever how many years. As of someone who isn't heterosexual, like it said in the book, it talked about them backing away from, you know, saying what the relationship in, involves, or who it involves. Usually they have to always think about what they're going to say, and how they're going to announce, their sexuality. They have to think about those things. And as of me, I don't have to think about, I'm just freely open to, with no one challenging my my sexuality. And so yeah, I do feel like I have a privilege within those sets, within that area. Um so yeah, if anyone want to comment on this video of what I've said so far, you can, especially about some of the examples I gave about microaggression and about privilege. I would love to hear your comments. Yes, thank you.